Andrew Mallory was the first to say it out loud, though I think somewhere deep down, we've all felt it echoing behind our teeth. What if humans are just sleeping gods of war, and the universe is holding its breath, praying we never wake? Up. I was there when he said it that night in late October when the rain came sideways and the air felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't a question. It was a revelation, as if he'd pulled back a curtain stitched with silence and shame. He looked at me, no, through me, like something else was steering him, like something older was speaking through his mouth. Then he vanished, mid-conversation, mid-sentence, gone, like a breath swallowed by a void. The street lamp above fizzled out a second later, and all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, and that too started to slow, like it was sinking to something that didn't belong to me. You don't understand yet. I didn't either. But now you're here. Now you've seen the file, the logs, the footage. You opened it, didn't you? Maybe you thought this was just another late-night rabbit hole, a sci-fi thread spun by sleep-deprived minds with too much caffeine and not enough boundaries. But this isn't a story. This is a scar in the fabric of what we think is real. And the deeper you go, the more familiar it feels, like you've always known. This wasn't our first war, our first civilization, our first fall. I was reviewing Andrew's last security feed, just static at first, but if you freeze frame at 0317-06, there's a shape. Human, but not. Towering behind him in the blink between frames, it looked like him. Only older, impossibly older. And its eyes weren't angry or kind. They were waiting. He'd just whispered something seconds before. Words I didn't hear in person, but the mic picked up 3 syllables. 3 syllables my newborn niece mumbled in her sleep 2 nights ago, even though she hasn't spoken a word in her life. It was the same name carved into the basement wall of an abandoned missile silo in Montana, beneath layers of paint and plaster. Varaneth. None of us have ever said it before, but somehow we all recognize it, like a nightmare passed down, in our DNA. My brother Thomas, ex-Marine, calm as stone, never believed in ghosts, conspiracies, or anything he couldn't shoot. He listened to the recording once, just once. Then he walked into the woods barefoot and hasn't come back. He left, his phone on the kitchen counter, still recording. I replayed it this morning. Just winding birds. Until the last 4 seconds when I heard my grandfather's voice, he died in 1987, say, "It's time they remember what they are." Whatever Andrew woke, it's not coming. It's not rising. It's already here, and it remembers us. I didn't sleep after that. Not really. Just lay there, wrapped in that cold static of thought that buzzes louder than silence ever should. I kept hearing my grandfather's voice. It's time they remember what they are. And it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like permission. Like something ancient had been watching us forget, century after century, and was finally ready to let us open our eyes again. Or worse, make us open them. But maybe I imagined it. I had been digging into Andrew's last messages, his files, his digital trail like it was gospel. Maybe I wanted to find something. After all, grief does strange things, and the mind's a hell of a traitor when you push it too hard. At least that's what Leah said when I called her, Leah Carter. We'd grown up in the same neighborhood, both of us orbiting that strange intersection of too smart for our own good, and too quiet to be saved from ourselves. She'd been Andrew's old girlfriend once for about a year, until he changed, until the dreams started. I hadn't seen her in months, maybe a year, but I called her anyway because I remembered something Andrew wrote in a journal I found zipped in a locked folder called Wake Up Protocol. It was a single line, all uppercase. If I vanish, she knows why. When Leah answered, her voice was the same, velvety, calm. But there was a pause too long between each word, like she was buffering emotions she didn't want me to hear. I told her what happened. She didn't respond at first. I heard breathing, then static, then her voice again, but not quite. Slurred, off pitch, like a bad dub over her real voice. Don't look for me. Don't trust what you remember. Then, The line went dead, no dial tone. Just a sharp, bone-deep hum that stayed in my ears long after I threw the phone across the room. That's when I started hearing the glitches, not the kind from movies, not backwards whispers or children laughing behind closed doors. No, these were subtler. The lights in my kitchen would flicker when I walked in, but only once, only the moment I noticed. My laptop began showing me video thumbnails I didn't remember downloading, short clips titled with timestamps I never named. One was just a loop of me sleeping, or someone who looked like me, mouth open, eyes twitching under lids like they were watching a war behind the dream. Except I've never owned a webcam. The worst one, though, was audio. Found it buried in my phone's voice memos under a name I didn't recognize. David Altiun3. I clicked play. My voice came through, panicked, muttering things I don't remember saying. They're not from the stars. They're from us. We sealed it off. We chose to forget. Leah said the dreams are anchors, and if we remember too much. Then a scream. Mine. Choked, sharp, then silence. The file ends at 03:17:06, the same timestamp Andrew disappeared. I don't remember recording it. I don't remember any of it. I left town after that, got in the car, drove through the back roads of Utah until my phone lost signal, until the sky opened up above me in that awful, beautiful way it only does when it feels like it's watching. I didn't have a destination. I just needed distance. From my house, from Andrew's files, from the creeping certainty that something had cracked in the wall between then and now, and reality was leaking through. That's where I found Leah, again. Or maybe she found me. She was in a diner off Route 89, sitting in a booth like she'd been waiting. Same eyes, same voice. But her smile never reached either. I sat down, heart crawling up my throat, and she just looked at me like she'd seen this exact moment before, like we were trapped in a memory we hadn't made yet. I told you not to come, she said. I didn't tell you where I was going. She didn't answer that. What she said next chilled something ancient inside me. You're not the first version of you I've had this conversation with. I laughed. Reflex. She didn't. Every time you start remembering, she said, you find me. And every time I try to stop you, I forget something too. It's like we're pieces of a puzzle trying to rebuild the box we came in. But the more we fit together, the more the picture scares us. I asked her what was happening, what Andrew woke, what Varaneth was. She shook her head, tears in her eyes, but not falling. It's not a thing, she whispered. It's a state, a version of being. It's what we were, before empathy, before mercy. Something buried beneath kindness, like a loaded weapon under soft sheets. Then she pulled out her phone and played a recording. It was me again, crying, laughing, screaming. I was saying the same name over and over. Varaneth, Varaneth, Varaneth. Like a prayer I didn't believe, or a trigger I couldn't resist. Then I started begging her to kill me, not to let me remember again. Do you believe it now? She asked. I wanted to. I wanted to call it a psychotic break, a shared delusion, a trauma loop spiraling between grief and obsession. I wanted a clean answer. But the air tasted too still, the light felt too artificial, and in that diner, no one else moved. No servers, no patrons, no sound but her voice and the low hum of the fridge behind the counter. It was like the world had paused for our scene. You're not going to believe this tomorrow, she said. But when you find this footage again, and you will watch your eyes, not your voice, not the words, watch your eyes, you're not all the way here anymore. I blinked, and she was gone. No dishes on the table, no cup, no phone, just me and my reflection in the window. And for 1 second I saw my reflection smile when I didn't. Now I'm back home, or what used to feel like home. The lights work. My phone's clean, no creepy audio files. The footage is gone, all the folders vanished like they were never there. In Andrew's digital shadow has been erased, scrubbed from every drive, every cloud, and I haven't told anyone. Who would believe me? Who's left? But last night I dreamed of a city buried under oceans, where the people's faces were blurred, like they hadn't been finished yet, and they were chanting something in a language that tasted like blood and thunder. When I woke up, I was holding a note in handwriting I don't recognize. Just 5 words. You're next to remember, again. And the date, 6/6/25. I don't know what will happen that day, but the truth, I think I already do. And if I disappear before then, before the next version of me starts digging again, I need you to remember. Because no one else will. I found the cabin 2 hours past where the road dies. GPS gave up miles back, and I had to rely on hand-sketched directions that I don't remember writing. The paper had been folded into my back pocket, already worn at the edges, already stained like it had lived in there for months. Maybe it had. Maybe I just hadn't noticed. The strange thing was I recognized the turns before I took them. The trees, the chipped mile markers, even the rusted billboard with the faded silhouette of a man staring into the sky, half torn, away like something had clawed it off. I knew them, not like someone who'd visited, like someone who'd escaped. The cabin wasn't locked, nothing ever is, not when it's meant for you. Inside, dust blanketed everything like snowfall, and yet, the fireplace was still warm. The air carried that wood smoke scent that stirs something primal in the chest, like old stories half-remembered around forgotten fires. There were no pictures. On the walls, no notes, no names. Just a laptop on the table, already open, already humming. This was the part that should have scared me, but it didn't. It felt like coming home to a lie I'd grown comfortable with. The laptop had no login screen, no icons, just a single window open. A video player paused at the first frame of a clip titled, Reclamation 6, Final. The thumbnail was black, but I clicked play anyway. What else was I going to do? Ignore the end of a question that had already taken people I loved? The footage was shaky, time-stamped 8 years ago. It showed Andrew, younger, thinner, eyes darting like he was already hearing things the rest of us couldn't. He was in this same cabin, same table. He was talking to someone behind the camera. It's not a curse, he said, almost laughing. It's a return. We buried it in our bones and called it evolution. The camera panned to a wall covered in papers, maps, diagrams, sketches of symbols I've seen in dreams, but never drawn. There was one note pinned at the center with red thread branching like veins from its corners. The handwriting was unmistakable. My own. But the date at the bottom read 6/6/1779. 8 years before I stepped foot in this place. I kept watching. Andrew pulled a black box from under the floorboards. Something pulsed inside it, faint and red, like a heartbeat trapped in time. He placed his hand on the box, closed his eyes, and whispered, Varanith. Just once. Then the lights in the cabin flickered, and the feed cut to static. I froze. Not from fear. From familiarity. Because I remembered this now. I remembered finding this place before, watching that tape, digging up that box, opening it. What came next wasn't a clear image. It was a sensation, deep and wrong like someone else had worn my skin for a while, and when I came back it didn't fit right anymore. My fingerprints didn't match anything after that week. My voice sometimes triggered unknown commands on my devices. My dog didn't recognize me. The hidden truth is never one thing. It's layered, wrapped in versions of yourself you buried to survive. And this cabin? It was a sarcophagus of memory. Something I'd sealed myself into, convinced it would keep others safe. But something had broken the seal. Maybe Andrew. Maybe Leah. Maybe me. I explored the rest of the cabin. There was a room in the back I hadn't noticed before. A door that blended with the wall like it didn't want to be seen. Inside, nothing but a table, and on it, an old tape recorder and a Polaroid photo. The recorder whirred to life the moment I touched it, as if it had been waiting. My voice came through, calm, too calm. If you're hearing this, then you've forgotten again. That's good. It means the protocol worked. But it also means it's starting to wake. Listen carefully. It can't manifest unless you remember all of it. It needs coherence, identity. That's why you must not open the drawer under the recorder. My hand was already on the drawer. I hesitated, for the first time, genuinely unsure whether the voice I was hearing was trying to protect me or stop me. I opened it anyway. Inside, just one thing. Another Polaroid. This one was of me, as a child, standing beside a man whose face had been burned out by light. Behind us, a structure, not a house, not a cabin. Something angular, metallic, wrong. I remember this photo. I remember the day. But here's the twist. The man in the photo? I always thought it was my father. But my father died before I was born. I stared at it too long. Felt that familiar vertigo again, like a memory being dragged out too fast, too forcefully. Then I heard something move in the hallway. Not footsteps, not breathing, just the sound of a chair scraping the floor. Very slowly. I turned back to the room. There was someone sitting in the living area now. It was me. Not a mirror, not a dream, just me. Same face, same clothes, only older. Like years had passed since I last saw him. He didn't speak. He just pointed toward the laptop, toward the paused video. I turned back. The video had changed. It wasn't Andrew anymore. It was Leah. She was crying, blood on her shirt, her eyes wide with something more than fear, grief maybe. She held a knife in her hand, and behind her on the wall was scrawled a message in what looked like black paint, but wasn't. You were never meant to wake. Then she looked straight into the camera and said something that shattered the illusion of false safety I'd built around this truth I thought I'd found. This isn't the first time you've killed me. And the screen went dark. Everything I thought I knew. Andrew's disappearance, the meaning of Verenith, the broken timelines, the shifting voices, the strange recordings, all of it. It felt like it had been constructed for me, to keep me engaged, to keep me believing in a story with a shape, a pattern, a solvable puzzle. But what if it wasn't a puzzle? What if it was a cage? A loop made of memory fragments and emotional triggers designed not to help me uncover the truth, but to feed something that thrives on near revelation. A force that doesn't want clarity, just obsession. That drags you back again and again to the same questions because the act of remembering is what feeds it. I turned to confront the other version of me sitting in the chair, but it was empty. No sign of anyone, no footprints, no warmth. Just the faint sound of a recorder clicking off in the back room, and on the laptop screen a new file had appeared. Reclamation 07 Final. Only this time the thumbnail was a live feed of me. Watching. The screen, and behind me, a shape. You'll have to watch it again from the beginning because the truth isn't in the story. It's in the parts you didn't notice, and it's still watching. Always has been. It started with symbols, not dramatic. Ones etched in blood or carved into walls. No, these were quieter, more patient. A mark on the back of a street sign I passed every day, one I'd never noticed until that morning after the cabin. A spiral inside a triangle, drawn so faintly in ash-gray chalk it vanished in sunlight, but pulsed under moonlight like it knew it was being seen. I would have dismissed it, another graffiti tag, a leftover from some teenage ritual, except I saw it again, on the back of a receipt in my wallet, on a stranger's shirt sleeve in line at the gas station, etched in frost across my car's windshield at 3:17 a.m. I wiped it off, heart racing. The moment I did, my dashboard clock blinked once, then reset. 3:17, again. That's when I stopped believing this was just my story. It was never just mine, because then the messages started, slipped into the corners of emails I never opened, layered, into the static between YouTube ads, stitched into subtitles that glitched mid-video to flash. You were right all along. One message was scribbled on a note slid under my door. No handwriting, Just printed text like it had been cut from different newspapers and pasted like a ransom letter. Do not trust the footage. You aren't the first we remember. They were out there, others, people like me, or maybe not like me, not anymore. People who'd seen something, heard voices on repeat where silence should have been. Survivors of memory glitches they were told were dreams. People who'd been quietly collecting the puzzle pieces, but not solving them, feeding them to something else. The closer I got, the more certain I became that none of this was about understanding. It was about containment. We were infected, all of us, not with a virus, but with a truth too dangerous to name. And we were being studied, or watched. There was a thread on an old forum I hadn't visited in years, one I swore I'd been banned from. It had resurfaced. The title simply read, "Re-found footage from 20 years ago." It had one reply, just a series of coordinates and the phrase, "We never stopped filming." That's what drew me to the basement under the old federal building just outside Phoenix. I wasn't supposed to be there. The building had been condemned in 2011, but the locks were broken. The door was ajar. Inside, dust coated everything, but the air smelled sharp, like old film, ozone, and static. Deep in the lower levels, past rusted archives and mold-eaten boxes, I found it. A room with no label, just an iron door with a fingerprint pad. I touched it, not expecting anything, and the door unlocked. Like it recognized me. Inside, a wall of screens, hundreds of them, each playing grainy footage, dates flickering in the eye. Corner, different years, different faces. Some I recognized, Andrew, Leah, some I didn't, but they all shared the same haunted look, the same desperate eyes of someone who had remembered too much too fast. Then I saw myself, from a week ago, in the cabin, watching the video. Then I saw another feed, me again, but younger. A child, sitting at a desk, talking to someone off camera, my voice clearer than it should have been for the time period. "I'll forget this, right? You'll make sure?" Then a reply filtered through static. "We always do." There was no timestamp on that one. I backed away from the screens, and that's when she stepped out of the shadows. Not Leah, not the woman from the diner. Someone else. She was tall, gaunt, eyes ringed with something that looked more like burnout than makeup. Her presence was calm, but the air around her felt wrong, like stepping into a memory you didn't want. She said her name was Helen. She claimed she'd been watching me for a long time, but not just me. All of us. The forgotten. The remembered. The interference. She handed me a sheet of paper, a list of names. Mine, Andrew's, Leah's, dozens of others. Then, at the bottom, you. In bold. "You think this started with you," she said, her voice tired, trembling like something had finally broken inside her. But it didn't. It started with an experiment in '93, MK Prodigal. They weren't trying to control us, they were trying to forget what we used to be. The footage you found? Those were the ones who slipped through. Who remembered before. The filter settled back in. I asked her what the filter was, she laughed. Not cruelly, just sad. Memory, identity, emotion. "You think they're natural? They're safeguards. Planted after the war. Not between countries, between versions. Before this version of you could be trusted to walk around unarmed. You're not crazy, they lied to you. Every version of you." I didn't believe her, couldn't. But then she showed me the last file. A body, cold, dressed in my clothes. The autopsy report was labeled 2006 cause of death. Self-inflicted cranial trauma after auditory hallucinations. I was 13 years old in 2006, or I thought I was. The truth, the real, ugly, slippery truth, is that there may not be one version. Me, there may be dozens. Failed clones, fractured iterations. Conscious echoes meant to explore a theory, then be shut down. Except I didn't shut down. None of us did. And now they're watching. Not just me. You. Because something has changed in you too, hasn't it? Little moments. Déjà vu that lingers. Longer than it should. Dreams that bleed into your waking hours. Faces in crowds you think you know. Snippets of conversations you swear you already heard. That nagging feeling when you stare at yourself in the mirror and wonder, is this the only version of me? You're not alone. They never stopped the experiment. They just moved it online. That's why these videos matter. Why you matter. Because if you're still watching this, if your heart hasn't stopped racing and you've made it this far, then there's something in you that survived the filter. Some part of you that knows. And the moment you believe that, the moment you realize this isn't just a story, that's when they find you. Not with force, not with fear, with familiarity. Someone knocks on your door. A friend you thought moved away. A voice on a call you forgot to make. A memory you never had. They just want to talk, but that's not the danger. You'll want to let them in. And when you do, everything you remember, everything you are, might vanish again. Unless you start writing it down. Unless you start sharing it, because that's the only way this ends. Not with silence, but with the next version of you watching this, picking up the pieces, and remembering what they never wanted us to. You were right all along. Now prove it. The room was silent save for the soft hum of the monitors. Each screen flickered with images, faces, places, moments, echoes of lives lived and forgotten. In the center stood the main character, eyes fixed on a particular screen displaying a memory they couldn't recall experiencing. A voice broke the silence, gentle yet firm. It belonged to an observer, someone who had been watching from the shadows, their presence both comforting and unsettling. "You've come far," the observer said, stepping into the dim light. "But the journey isn't over." The main character turned, confusion and recognition flickering across their face. "Who are you?" they asked. The observer smiled sadly. "A friend, a guide, perhaps a part of you." They gestured to the screens. "These memories, these fragments, they're pieces of a puzzle. But the picture they form isn't just about you. It's about all of us." The main character looked back at the screens, the weight of realization settling in. "What am I supposed to do?" they whispered. The observer stepped closer, placing a hand on their shoulder. "Remember, accept, choose." A pause. "But know this," the observer continued. "The truth can be a burden. It can shatter or set you free. The choice is yours." The main character closed their eyes, taking a deep breath. When they opened them, clarity shone through. "I'm ready," they said. The observer nodded, stepping back into the shadows. The screens began to fade one by one until only darkness remained. In that darkness, a single thought echoed. Some truths don't want to be found. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.